A number of years ago, there was something not being done. And I decided to do something about it. It revolved around a newsletter. And the newsletter wasn't getting done. Nobody wanted to do the newsletter. And mind you, this was actually occurring in a church. So I said, okay, fine. I will go ahead and I will do the newsletter. So I got all the information together, you know how organized I am, I'm sure, yeah. So I got it all together. I got dates for different activities going on. I wrote the pastor's pen. I put the lectionary readings in there. And I thought I did a pretty gosh darn good job on the newsletter. I printed it out. I gave it to everybody. I emailed other ones coming out. And it was all good until people started to complain about it. Pastor Phil, the font size isn't quite right. It's too small. It should be bigger. Oh, okay. Pastor Phil, you shouldn't print it in color, though. It's good, but if you print it in color, it's going to cost more to print out each month. Oh, okay. Pastor Phil, you forgot to send it to 18 people on your email list. Oh, okay. And these criticisms, negative criticisms, kept pouring in. And I was like, well, gee, I want to continue doing this for a while. You ever been there? When you have done something, and people come around you, and all they want to do is criticize what you've done? And how does that make you feel when all you do is get criticism on what you've done? Really good? You want to rush back out there and do it again? Or do you want to just go, I don't want to waste my time with it anymore. I don't want to waste my time. Could you rush back there and close that door for me? It's the glare from the car. Or you can move the car. I don't care. You're good. Thank you. Sorry about that. Thanks, Kathy. Thank you. Appreciate it. Now I can see Ryan again. I'm happy. But sometimes we get that way, right? We do something and all we hear is a criticism about what we do. And maybe have you found yourself criticizing other people about the things that they do or aren't doing like you would have them do it? Criticism? I see criticisms all over the place on social media. You can see anything on social media and somebody will criticize what you said, how you said it, some way, right? And sometimes we get criticized for not wearing the right tie with the right shirt. Oh, you wore that today? Oh, you should have maybe worn this other one. Criticize people for the shoes they wear. We like to criticize people, I think. We do it. Maybe subconsciously, but it's something that we do. And I'm wondering, why do we have to criticize all the time? We see somebody doing something and we find fault with it, and we're like, well, why is there fault with what's going on? Right? Why is there fault? Didn't the person do a decent job at what they did? Why do we have to criticize those things? This morning, I woke up, got ready to go, went outside to my car, got in my car, and there was a gentleman 2 houses down with his white SUV. He had the back open. He was putting something into the back of his SUV. Can you guess what that might have been? Sunday morning. Golf clubs. You know what the first thought out of my head was? Well, he should probably go to church first and then go play golf. Right? I was criticizing his actions. Maybe he was going to go to church. I don't know. Maybe he had already been to church Saturday night. I don't know. But my first thought was to criticize him for putting golf clubs in his car on a Sunday morning and not going to church. Was I correct? Do I know anything about what this guy's going to do? No. And I've been preparing the sermon on criticism all week long, right? So I should have known better on Sunday morning to even do that. I get in the car, and I'm driving up, coming through Platteville, right? Hit the first light, heading down to the second light. There's a car in front of me. There's 2 cars over here. They start speeding up. Zip right over in front of everybody. I knew they were going to do it. I knew it. And I was like, well, if they would have just gone behind, it would have been safer, and we'd all get to the light nearly at the same time. And one of the cars actually went straight. It didn't even turn. So I was like, they should have done it a different way. So I was criticizing their driving techniques, right? So within 5 minutes of leaving the house, I found myself criticizing 2 different times when I'm coming to church to talk about how we shouldn't criticize people. Yeah. Do you criticize? We do, don't we? I was just falling into it. This whole week I was like, wow, I'm criticizing. Wow, I'm criticizing. Wow, I did it all the time. And I'm wondering, if I criticize people that much, maybe people here might have the same problem. Do you? Yeah. Good thing I haven't seen that cookbook yet, or I'd complain about it. I would have used a different picture, for sure. It's something about, I don't know, it's our culture or just whatever. We like to criticize. We like to see somebody's work and do something about it, right? And we're entering into a season of criticism right now. We're entering into a season of criticism. And that criticism takes the name of football around here. Okay, how many times have you watched your little beloved Broncos and watched the quarterback do something and you said, oh, I would never have done that. I would have done this. No, thank you. Hey, amen. Or the coach, the coach is making a call and they're like, I would never have done that. And mind you, how many NFL level football people do we have in this room right now? No. You can play the sport. You've done it at the NFL level, Shirley? Okay, well, she surprises everybody. Right? Yet we find it okay to criticize a coach and a quarterback in a situation that we're not in. We can't see the whole field like they can't see the whole field like we do. We have 18 camera angles. We know where the people are. We know where the open receivers are. Why did you throw it there? I would have thrown it over here. We have a different angle. We got a better angle. But yeah, we're criticizing these professionals, right? I think we've all done that. But what right do we have to do that? Do you know anything about what's going on? We think we do. We think we do. We got one football coach in this whole room. He's probably got the best chance at telling us what's right and what's wrong. I don't. I watch football. I think I know what's going on. But I'm the first one to go, oh my gosh, my grandma could have done better than that. And they should have run this play over here. Never pass on second. I don't know what all those things are. You got these rules, right? But you criticize what's going on. And what do we do? Why do we do that? Because every time we criticize, we become negative, don't we? If I'm criticizing Mary's piano playing every single day, am I ever going to like her piano playing? No. Because I'm negative. No, we love it. You can't go anywhere. Right? Or if I'm criticizing Shirley's cooking, which you can't do because it's perfect, right? But it brings negativity. If I criticize people, every time I look at that person or the situation, I'm thinking negative thoughts, right? So it brings with it this negative context, which I don't think is really good for us. So, this is basically how we find ourselves. I could have done it better. You shouldn't do it that way. You should do it this way. We've all done this, yes? Have we done it this week? Have we done it today, or is that just me? Yeah, this one really hit home for me. I think I'm really preaching to myself with this sermon. I really do. I need to hear it. Jesus is out, and it's the Sabbath. And the gospel tells us about a woman who's been afflicted for 18 years because she's all bent over. I think it was probably an extreme bent over posture. And she's in the presence of Jesus on the Sabbath. And Jesus sees her and he calls out to her because he sees her condition. And I think he just simply wants to help. She comes over to him and he basically brings healing to her. And she stands up straight, right? For the first time in 18 years, she can actually look people in the eye. Because if you're bent over, what are you looking at? You're looking at the ground. You're looking at people's feet. So he straightened her up and she was freed from that ailment. I'm sure she was overjoyed, and I'm sure other people there were just overjoyed, like, wow, did you see what happened? But we had this other people there, the religious leaders of the time, and they didn't like it. They said, you shouldn't heal on the Sabbath. Huck. And this is probably what Jesus saw, was this guy saying, you're doing it the wrong way. And the scripture even says, if you want to heal people, there are 6 days for work. Do it then. Don't heal on the Sabbath. Well, I have a question for you. If you're really sick or you get hurt on a Sunday, are you going to go to the hospital or the doctor to get help? Yeah, you are. Because you need it. He makes this great analogy. And he says, okay, well, even on the Sabbath, don't you untie your donkeys and lead them to water? That's work. But the cattle and the ox and the donkey need the water in order to survive through the day. That's okay. But this woman who's been tied in bondage with this ailment, we can't help? Why not? And it says in the scripture that the people were humiliated who were talking about these things. And I'm not quite sure that was Jesus' intent. I think he was just trying to make a point. There's somebody who needed the help, and he was willing to help her. If he would have gone up to somebody who had a little cold, and if he would have healed them on the Sabbath, do you think it would have been a big deal? I don't think it would have. But because he healed that woman, for 18 years had been bent over and afflicted, and everybody knew it, and suddenly she's standing up straight. I think what he was doing is making the power of God present. He was making the power of God visible to everybody there. God can and God does heal. And people were criticizing Jesus for doing it on the Sabbath. Well, people gather in the synagogue on the Sabbath, right? They gather other places. And that's where she happened to be at the time. They were saying, you should have done it some other day of the week. Well, why? She was there on the Sabbath. She needed it. So I provided. Yet he had critics. People should have been rejoicing that this lady no longer was bent over. That she could now make a living for herself, see people and look people in the eye. I've known people who have been bent over. And it's hard. But be able to stand up straight and walk down the street and look somebody in the eye and have that respect once again. Because I'm sure people look down upon her. Shouldn't that have been rejoicing? I think it should have been, instead of criticizing what Jesus did. Have you ever criticized the way Jesus handled something in your life? I know I have. Jesus, why didn't you do it this way? Jesus, why didn't you do it this way? Do I have a right to criticize Jesus? Probably not. Because I think Jesus knows what's best. I don't understand some things that Jesus does in Jesus' way. I don't understand them. But I don't think it's my place to even criticize it. Because I don't understand it. It's like criticizing the sports teams when you don't really understand what's happening. It's like criticizing the newsletter when you're not willing to even help make it better. So what do we do instead of walking around criticizing people and situations all day long? Is there another avenue we can maybe take? Huck? Be an encourager. The world has plenty of critics already. When we criticize, we're always looking on the negative side of the world. When we encourage, we're looking on the positive side. Somebody creates a newsletter in a church, you go, hey, you did a really good job in that newsletter. That's really awesome. It's amazing. Can they help you with it next month? I got some ideas and maybe even make it better. Is that encouraging? Does that make me want to do that newsletter again? Absolutely. Right? So the team didn't run the right play. Well, next time, we'll run the right play and we'll get a better result, right? So yay, let's go team, right? And whatever is going on. If we encourage people, instead of criticizing them, I think it helps us and it helps them. I don't really like to be around people who criticize all the time. Because it pulls me down. It makes me feel negative, right? But if I'm around people who are encouraging all the time, it's a whole lot easier to be around. Because positive things are being said. Positive things are being done. I think there's been a lot of good done in the world. And people have criticized it for whatever reasons. You've probably done good things in your life. And people have criticized you for it too. Well, it had to be done, but you probably should have done it this other way. Well, where were you when I was going through my problems? You weren't there to help me, so I had to do something. What if we turn that around again and just say, hey, you know what? I know that was a tough situation for you. I'm sorry I wasn't there to help you. Is there something I can help you with now? Encourage. Instead of criticize. Could you imagine if that would have happened in Jesus' day? If that religious group would have said, hey, Jesus, that was really awesome. You healed that woman who's been afflicted for 18 years, and now she can walk. That's awesome. This is cool. Let's go out to lunch together. Right? Could you see Jesus and that group going out to lunch together and being on a positive, encouraging note? Because we don't really read about it in the scriptures. It's always criticizing and doing this. Now think about the people in your life who you like to criticize or who criticize you. And what would happen to that relationship if you started to encourage one another? Would it be better? I'd venture to say, probably. Definitely can't hurt anymore. Huck? Like this quote as well. Spend so much time improving yourself that you have no time left to criticize others. Okay? I'm going to repeat that. Spend so much time improving yourself that you have no time left to criticize others. If those Pharisees there who are criticizing Jesus were looking at their own lives and the own way they did things, they would have been too busy perfecting what they were doing that God wanted them to do instead of criticizing somebody, healing somebody on a Sabbath day. If I'm sitting there going, okay, I need to improve the way I do things, I wouldn't have noticed the guy putting golf clubs in his car. Or if I did, maybe I would have said, oh, I need to get out and work on my golf game as well, you know? We look at it differently. But how about we do this week? I think there's a general consensus in the room that we criticize probably way too much. So the next time you criticize, think about something you can do to improve yourself. And to criticize after that, make sure you, again, write down or make a list of something you can do to improve things in your life. And I bet, if you're anything like me, by the end of the week, I'm going to have a pretty long list of things that I could work on to improve myself on. Because I found myself last week, even knowing I was preaching this sermon on criticism, criticizing people. I would catch myself and go, wow, that wasn't too good. Well, how about we go out and do that this week? Start today. See how that goes. You might have a long list by the end of today as well. I don't know. But each time you feel like you're criticizing or going to criticize, think about something you can do to improve yourself. then work on that. Instead of criticizing, let's begin to encourage one another. I think if we do a combination of these two things, I think it'll change the people around us. And I know for me, it'll change the way I look at other people as well. And I think for right now, that's probably a pretty good place to start. Would you pray with me, please? Most gracious and glorious God, Lord, I thank you for being with us. And Lord, this week, help us not to criticize, but to help and to encourage. In your name we pray, O Lord. Amen.